let's talk about something real. In a world that is just so incredibly loud, a world that never stops shouting for your attention, how are you supposed to hear the voice of God? Today, we're going to dive right into the source material to try and answer that. I mean, have you ever been there? You've prayed, you've asked, heck, maybe you've begged for just a sign, any word at all. And what do you get in return? The constant noise of the news, the static of your own anxiety, the quiet echo of an empty room. If you've ever felt that distance, that feeling like you're just speaking into a void, you are definitely not alone. It's this common ache so many of us feel living in this chaotic world. And it can't help but make you wonder. That really is the core question, isn't it? Has the line just gone dead? Well, what's so fascinating is that the sources we're digging into today suggest something else entirely. They suggest God is speaking, but maybe, just maybe, not in the way we've been taught to listen. Okay, to really get a handle on this, let's jump into a story. It's about this mighty prophet, a man named Elijah, who, at this point in his life, finds himself completely broken, afraid, and literally hiding out in a cave. And this wasn't just some casual wish, The source material makes it crystal clear. He was desperate. He needed to hear from God more than he needed his next breath. He was at the absolute end of his rope, and he needed a word, any word, just to keep going. So God tells Elijah to go stand on the mountain and wait. And what happens next is pure spectacle, a huge display, but it's not what you'd expect. First, a windstorm so powerful, it's literally shattering the rocks on the mountains. I mean, this is the kind of raw power, the kind of dramatic sign we might look for, right? But the Bible is incredibly specific here. The Lord was not in the wind. Okay, so what's next? An earthquake. The very ground is shaking. Another massive, undeniable display of force. Surely God would be in something this big, this world-shaking. But again, the Lord was not in the earthquake. And finally, after all that, a raging, consuming fire. Now think about these three things together: wind, earthquake, and fire. They represent total chaos, power, and destruction. Yet God was in none of them. There's a powerful pattern being laid out for us here. And this brings us to the crucial point. If God wasn't in all that spectacle and chaos, where was he? Well, the answer completely redefines how we should be listening. After all the noise, after all the chaos finally died down, there it was, a still small voice. This wasn't a shout. It wasn't a roar. It was the quietest, most subtle thing imaginable. Now, the classic King James Version calls it a still, small voice. But when you dig into the original Hebrew, you find something even more profound. The phrase implies a sound of gentle silence. Think about that for a second. A sound of silence. It's a whisper you can only hear when you finally stop straining to see the big show. So let's just break this down and make it practical. God's primary language isn't the earthquake of your crisis, or the fire of your personal disaster, or the roaring wind of all the tumult in the world. His language is the whisper that comes after. It's that gentle nudge of peace that just doesn't make sense given your circumstances. It's that quiet conviction that leads you away from harm. All right, so if God speaks in a whisper, how do we tune our ears to actually hear it? The sources we're looking at outline a really clear 3-step guide for creating the space we need to listen. But before we even get to the steps, there's a certain posture we need to have. This promise from Jeremiah is the absolute key. It says you'll find him when you search with your whole heart. See, hearing isn't just a passive wish. It takes a determined, full-hearted decision to turn your attention toward him. That's when this promise gets activated. So how does that heart posture turn into something we can actually do? Well, it really comes down to 3 things. First, you have to obey the command to be still. Second, open the book. And third, you have to learn to trust the whisper. Now, when we say be still, it doesn't just mean be quiet. The sources define it as letting go, as ceasing to strive. It's about you stopping the demand that God has to show up in the wind, the earthquake, and the fire of your life. It's a true act of surrender. And listen, this does not have to be some monumental task. You can start small. For just 5 minutes today, turn everything off. The screens, the music, everything. Don't even start with your list of requests. Just sit in the quiet and acknowledge his presence. You're intentionally creating space for that whisper. So when you're in that quiet space, what are you even listening for? It's probably not going to be a booming voice from the clouds. Instead, look for things like these. A peace that makes absolutely no sense, a sudden, kind thought to forgive someone, an unexplainable comfort that settles over you, or that gentle no in your spirit that protects you from a bad decision. That is the shepherd speaking. This all leads us to our final and maybe the most important point of all. Hearing God isn't just about learning a new technique, it's about reclaiming your identity. Jesus makes this incredible declaration. He doesn't say, "My sheep might hear my voice," or "My sheep should hear my voice." It's a statement of fact. My sheep hear my voice. The sources say this one verse completely obliterates the lie that you are somehow orphaned from his voice. So here's the crucial takeaway. If you belong to him, your identity is not one God ignores. Your identity is his sheep. And by definition, his sheep are capable of hearing his voice. The problem isn't his silence. It's that our hearing has been trained and deafened by a very, very loud world. When you put it all together, you get this clear biblical blueprint. It starts with Elijah, showing us God speaks in the whisper, not the chaos. Then comes the instruction to be still by letting go. That's followed by the promise that we will find him when we truly seek. And it's all grounded in the powerful affirmation of our identity. We're his sheep, and his sheep hear his voice. And so we end right back where we started, but with a whole new perspective. The silence you feel, it might not be his absence at all. It might just be the very canvas upon which he's about to speak his most intimate word to you. The question is no longer, is God speaking? But rather, are you creating the quiet space to listen?